Step into Sci-Fi codes where mystery meets imagination. Enjoy the journey, and don't forget to subscribe. Chapter 1: The Conqueror's Hubris. The Galactic Empire, with its colossal military fleets, had conquered the stars for centuries. Its presence stretched across countless systems, where no civilization dared to challenge its dominance. The strength of its armada was unmatched, and its leaders, particularly Admiral Varen, had cultivated a reputation as ruthless, unyielding conquerors. Across his long career, Varen had never encountered a race that could stand against the Empire. His victories were countless, his name a symbol of might across the galaxy. Seated at the command deck of his flagship, the Imperial Wrath, Admiral Varen received an unusual report: an unknown fleet had entered the Empire's restricted space. The vast intelligence network that the Empire relied on had no record of the ships, and the unknown vessels were unlike anything Varen had seen before. His officers quickly labeled them as either pirates or a rogue civilization that had wandered too far into forbidden territory. Regardless of who they were, Varen felt certain that it didn't matter. "This is nothing," Varen muttered with a smirk. "They don't even have an escort." He waved a dismissive hand toward the display, his eyes scanning the report. "One squadron should be enough." His officers, loyal and confident in the Empire's superiority, readied themselves for what they assumed would be yet another routine operation to crush the insignificant intruders. As the fleet advanced, the unknown ships were revealed as nothing more than a small convoy of vessels, their designs plain and unremarkable. They seemed to be exploratory in nature, not built for combat. To Varen, it was almost laughable. This would be a simple demonstration of the Empire's authority, a message sent across the stars to remind anyone who dared trespass of the consequences. The Imperial Wrath surged forward, its massive guns trained on the unknown fleet. Varen stood tall at the bridge, a slight grin on his face. "Move us closer," he ordered coldly. "Let's show them what they're dealing with." The fleet obeyed, the massive ships cutting through space with practiced ease. The other officers shared Varen's confidence, already picturing the swift, easy victory to come. Varen broadcasted a stern warning across the void. His voice, amplified to reach the unknown fleet, was dripping with authority. "You are trespassing in Galactic Empire space. Power down your vessels and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction." As expected, there was no immediate response. Varen barely raised an eyebrow at the silence. He had given similar ultimatums countless times before, and the outcome was always the same. Most alien species, upon hearing the Empire's voice, would submit quickly, recognizing their overwhelming strength. But a few, often emboldened by foolish arrogance, would test their strength against the Empire. And it always ended the same way: total and utter defeat. Minutes ticked by, and still, no reply came. The lack of a response only seemed to fuel Varen's sense of superiority. He turned to his communications officer, giving a pointed look. The officer shook his head, confirming that the unknown ships had still not responded. Varen's patience began to wear thin. He glanced back at the display screen, narrowing his eyes at the unknown vessels. "Perhaps they need a demonstration," he muttered. He turned sharply to his weapons officer. "Fire a warning shot." A calculated strike, just ahead of the lead vessel. With a slight nod, the officer initiated the command. A beam of bright, focused energy shot out from the Imperial Wrath, carving through the silence of space and striking a point just ahead of the lead vessel in the alien convoy. It was a display of power, a message delivered with precise intent. Yet, to Varen's astonishment, the alien ships did not respond as expected. They didn't scatter in fear. They didn't attempt to flee. They didn't even power up their weapons in defense. Instead, they seemed to move forward, completely unbothered, as if the warning shot hadn't even occurred. Varen's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are they ignoring us?" he growled under his breath. The sensors officer frantically scrolled through the data, eyes wide with confusion. There was something strange happening. The fleet's sensors suddenly detected weak energy signals coming from the unknown ships. They weren't transmitting any standard communication, but rather what seemed like an old-fashioned radio transmission, a rudimentary signal. Varen's curiosity flared. He wasn't sure what it meant, but it was unusual enough to demand attention. Within moments, the translation appeared on Varen's screen. The message was short, simple, and utterly baffling. "Is that the best you've got?" Varen blinked. The audacity of this message stunned him. No enemy had ever spoken to him or the Empire in such a manner. The tone was mocking, casual, as though the Empire's might was nothing more than a joke. Anger flared within him, but before he could respond, the message continued. "Do yourselves a favor and turn around. You're not equipped for this." For a moment, there was stunned silence on the bridge. Varen's officers exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence faltering in the face of such insolence. This wasn't the usual defiance, nor was it the prelude to surrender. No, these aliens, these humans, were openly mocking the Empire, something no one had dared do before. Varen's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles white with rage. He had no patience for this kind of insolence, especially from a group of ships he had already dismissed as insignificant. Full assault, Varen spat, his voice cold with fury. "Let's see them laugh this off." Chapter 2: The Wrath of Empire. The Empire's fleet surged forward, weapons blazing as Varen's wrath poured forth. Lasers, missiles, and plasma cannons filled the space between them and the unknown ships. The sheer magnitude of the assault should have left no chance for any opponent to survive. This was the Empire's strength, the overwhelming force of their armadas. No enemy could endure such a display of power. Yet, to Varen's horror, the alien ships reacted in ways he could not predict. As the barrage of energy and missiles reached them, the ships didn't explode or even flinch. Instead, they vanished from the scanners altogether. "They've disappeared," one of the officers stammered, eyes wide in disbelief. "Cloaking technology," Varen muttered through gritted teeth. He had heard of such devices before, but never had he seen them used so effectively. The Empire had its own stealth systems, but they were primitive compared to what he was now witnessing. These ships had simply vanished, slipping from his grasp as if the Empire's attack had never even happened. Panic began to rise on the bridge. Varen's heart pounded as he realized the magnitude of his miscalculation. The fleet fired blindly, hoping to catch the ships as they reappeared. Every shot landed on empty space. The unknown ships moved with an eerie grace, flickering in and out of visibility, evading every assault with flawless precision. "Where are they?" Varen's voice was a low growl of frustration. His fleet's efforts were becoming laughable. The unknown ships continued to mock them, each time reappearing only long enough to make a show of their superiority. They glided effortlessly through the chaos, leaving Varen and his crew in a spiral of confusion and mounting defeat. "Are they toying with us?" one of the junior officers whispered in disbelief. Varen's eyes burned with frustration. This was impossible. No fleet, no matter how skilled, could have such agility. Such perfect coordination. The enemy broadcast another message. "You might want to stop shooting before this gets embarrassing." Embarrassing. Varen had never felt embarrassed in his career, but now, surrounded by his fleet's most advanced weaponry, he was being made a fool of by a handful of ships that he had written off as insignificant. Anger and desperation clawed at him. He was Admiral Varen, conqueror of systems, breaker of empires. He would not be humiliated by these unknown ships. "All units, prepare the graviton cannons," he barked. "I don't care if they cloak. Fire at full power across the entire sector." Chapter 3: The Fall of Empire's Might. As the graviton cannons powered up, Varen felt a fleeting moment of satisfaction. These weapons were capable of disrupting even the most advanced cloaking fields. Nothing could hide from their gravitational pull. The human ships would be found, and their trickery would be undone. The moment the cannons fired, space itself seemed to ripple with energy. For a brief moment, Varen believed he had them, that their evasive tactics would finally be ineffective. But as the energy subsided, the human ships reappeared, completely unharmed. Another message flashed across the screen: "Nice try, but we warned you." Varen could scarcely believe what he was seeing. His finest weapons, capable of dismantling entire fleets, had done nothing against these humans. The pride of the Empire, his pride, had been shattered in a matter of moments. His officers remained in stunned silence, unsure of what to do next. No one dared speak, afraid of invoking Varen's wrath. Is this some kind of joke? Varen muttered bitterly, pacing across the bridge, his mind racing with frustration. His fleet, which had conquered worlds and shattered empires, was being humiliated by a handful of civilian ships. What is happening? Varen demanded, trying to regain some control over the situation. His voice was sharp, betraying his growing anger. The sensors officer nervously scanned the data. Sir, the targets remain unharmed. Their shields show no signs of damage. It's as if our weapons never even touched them. Varen's temper flared, but he forced himself to remain in control. His frustration was a beast threatening to break free, but he couldn't afford to lose his composure. He needed to think, to outmaneuver this force that was clearly toying with him. Deploy the fighters, Varen ordered. If their ships are too nimble for our main cannons, we'll overwhelm them with numbers. Within moments, hundreds of fighter craft launched from the Imperial Wrath, a cloud of sleek vessels hurtling toward the human convoy. The strategy was simple: outnumber them, engage in close-quarters combat, and find a way to breach their defenses. Surely, no cloaking device or shield could withstand that many attacks. As the fighters closed in, Varen watched the display, confident that this time they would break through. But then, something strange happened. The human ships didn't try to evade the attack, nor did they attempt to fight back. Instead, they accelerated toward the swarm of fighters, heading straight for them. What are they doing? Varen muttered, brow furrowing in confusion. Are they trying to ram them? Before he could process what was happening, the human ships vanished once again, cloaking in perfect synchrony. The fighter pilots scrambled, firing their weapons in every direction, but it was futile. The humans had simply disappeared, and the Empire's attack had once again failed. Varen's frustration was now absolute. He could hardly believe what was unfolding. He had underestimated these humans, had dismissed them as nothing more than an insignificant nuisance. And now, they were making a mockery of everything the Empire stood for. Another message from the human fleet appeared on Varen's screen. The tone was as mocking and casual as ever. Nice try. You really need to update your tactics. The bridge fell into stunned silence. The officers exchanged worried glances, the weight of their defeat sinking in. The Empire, with all its might and power, had been outclassed. Not only had the humans avoided every attack, but they had done so with ease, as if it were a game to them. Varen's face turned a deep shade of red, his fury boiling over. He slammed his fist down onto the console. They're toying with us, he growled. And he knew it was true. He had never faced an opponent like this before, one that didn't care for power, for brute force. This was something entirely different. Chapter 4, A Reckless Gamble. For Admiral Varen, there was only one choice left: escalate. His pride, his career, the Empire's reputation, all were on the line. He would not be made a fool of, not when there was a chance to turn things around. Prepare a strike team, he ordered, voice steely with resolve. I'll board one of their ships myself. It was a dangerous move, a reckless gambit. But Varen had seen enough. The only way to regain control was to confront these humans directly, on their terms. If their ships were too elusive for the Empire's weapons, then he would board one of them personally. His strike team would infiltrate their vessel, capture their leaders, and bring them to heel. The shuttle left the Imperial Wrath in the dead of night, moving through the darkness of space with stealth technology engaged. Varen's heart raced in anticipation. This would be his moment of triumph, his chance to show the humans who truly controlled the galaxy. But just as he neared the human vessel, something extraordinary happened. The shuttle, despite its cloaking systems, was suddenly frozen in place. Its engines sputtered to a halt. The strike team inside scrambled, trying to regain control, but nothing responded. What's happening? Varen demanded, his voice thick with panic. The shuttle's systems had been completely disabled. It hung motionless in space, caught in a force that Varen couldn't comprehend. It was as though the human fleet had anticipated every move. The strike team was stranded, powerless. No amount of advanced technology could help them now. Before Varen could issue new orders, the human fleet appeared, surrounding the Imperial Wrath with a precision that spoke of complete control. The enemy didn't fire a single shot. Instead, their presence was overwhelming in its sheer confidence. And then the message appeared on Varen's screen, "Still here. Ready to take this seriously yet?" The word stung, a brutal reminder that the Empire's dominance was no longer absolute. They were no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. Chapter 5: The Empire Strikes Back. Admiral Varen sat in the silence of his command room, fury smoldering in his chest. The Imperial Wrath had been caught in the trap, its engines disabled by an unseen force. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet their presence around the flagship was undeniable. Varen could feel his grip on the situation slipping with every passing second. His reputation, his fleet, and his career were all on the line. He would not be humiliated again. He couldn't be. "We've lost control of the shuttle, and now they've surrounded us," Varen muttered, voice hoarse with suppressed rage. He turned to his officers. "It's time to take the initiative. The Empire is not powerless. We are not going to be made a mockery of by a few arrogant humans." The bridge buzzed with tense activity as Varen's orders were carried out. The fleet began to position itself for a counterattack. "Activate all weapon systems," he commanded. "If these ships think they can toy with us any longer, we'll show them the full might of the Empire." He watched with steely resolve as the weapons arrays on his flagship powered up. In that moment, he wasn't an admiral, he was a force of nature. The Empire's might would break through whatever technology these humans were using. He would make them regret underestimating him. However, before he could issue the command to fire, another message appeared on his screen. The tone was as casual as ever, completely at odds with the situation. "We've been watching you, Admiral. This ends when you realize you're fighting the wrong battle." The arrogance in those words cut deep. But something about the calmness of the message made Varen hesitate. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for control of the galaxy. And right now, it felt as though the universe itself was slipping through his fingers. "We're not backing down," Varen growled. "We will fight to the last ship." His officers looked to him, uncertainty creeping into their expressions, but none dared challenge his orders. It was time to strike back. He ordered the fleet to engage, the Empire's might once again hurtling toward the unknown fleet with the full fury of its firepower, yet, the human fleet didn't retreat. Instead, it met the Empire head-on. In a display of shocking speed and precision, the enemy ships maneuvered through the oncoming barrage with ease, as if they had already anticipated every move Varen would make. The Empire's ships fired on all fronts, but the enemy continued to evade with a remarkable grace. The weapons couldn't touch them, and the Empire's fleet was slowly beginning to lose its momentum. Varen's jaw clenched as he watched his forces, once invincible, struggle in the face of an enemy they couldn't even touch. Another transmission came through, this time accompanied by a chillingly calm voice. "It's not the firepower that matters. It's the ability to adapt." Varen's mind raced. Adapt? How could they have known his every move? How could they anticipate the Empire's strategy before it even began? He was no longer facing a mere fleet, he was facing a mind capable of predicting the future. This was a battle Varen had never expected. And one he wasn't sure he could win. Chapter 6: The Breaking Point. The battle between the Empire and the human fleet had reached a critical point. Varen could feel the weight of each passing moment pressing down on him like a physical force. His fleet, once a symbol of unshakable power, now struggled in the face of an opponent who seemed to know their every move. The Empire's weapons fired in waves, but the human fleet evaded each attack with unearthly precision. As the hours stretched on, Varen's resolve began to waver. The Empire's strength was built on overwhelming firepower and superior tactics, but neither seemed to matter against the human fleet. No matter what Varen tried, he couldn't seem to land a single blow. Every time he thought he had them cornered, they slipped away. In the depths of his mind, a fear began to take root. For the first time in his career, he doubted his ability to lead the Empire to victory. The humans had taken everything from him, his fleet's dignity, his pride, and his reputation. He could not allow it to continue. But as the Empire's ships continued to fire, another transmission came through, one that would change everything. This time, it was not a mocking message, nor was it a taunt. It was a direct challenge. If you wish to continue this fight, Admiral Varen, you must first face the truth. The Empire is outdated, its time has passed. You're fighting a war that no longer exists. Adapt or perish. The message hit him like a punch to the gut. For the first time, Varen felt truly exposed. This wasn't about firepower. This wasn't about tactics. It was about something much deeper. The human fleet had exposed a truth that Varen had been unwilling to face: the Empire's time was coming to an end. Anger boiled up inside him. The humans were right. But they would not win. Not as long as he drew breath. Varen's hands tightened around the console. "We're not giving up," he hissed. "We'll fight until the last ship falls." His officers stood in stunned silence, knowing the grim reality of the situation. But Varen's resolve remained unbroken. If the humans thought they could end the Empire's reign, they were sorely mistaken. He would make them pay for their insolence. Yet, in the back of his mind, doubt continued to gnaw at him. Could he really stop this? Or had the Empire already lost? Chapter 7: The Final Gambit. In the final stages of the battle, the Imperial Wrath found itself isolated, surrounded by the human fleet, its weapons useless against the elusive ships. Varen's crew was exhausted, their morale shattered by the prolonged struggle. Yet, Varen refused to surrender. He had faced insurmountable odds before and emerged victorious. This time, he would do the same. In the command center, the hum of the ship's systems was deafening, a constant reminder of the growing sense of isolation. His fleet had suffered heavy casualties, and the Empire's grand war machine had faltered under the precision of the human fleet. Varen, however, was not ready to admit defeat. He could not. As he paced the bridge, plotting his next move, a new transmission arrived. This one was not accompanied by the casual tone he had grown to expect. It was different, urgent, almost sorrowful. "Admiral Varen, we've seen enough. This fight was never meant to be won by force alone. We are giving you a choice: retreat and regroup, or face total annihilation." The message stung, but there was an undercurrent of something else, an invitation to live, to survive. For the first time, the human fleet had offered a way out. Varen knew that they could destroy him and his entire fleet without effort. They had already proven they could do so. But the message also carried an implicit understanding. The Empire's power had always been its strength, but the humans understood something the Empire had forgotten: the ability to adapt. The Empire had never learned to evolve, to change with the times. And now, the Empire's outdated methods were its downfall. Varen stood at the helm of his flagship, his mind racing with options. The Empire could not afford to be so inflexible, to remain trapped in its old ways. But could he accept the invitation to change? For the first time in years, Varen felt the weight of his own vulnerability. His entire existence had been built on power and dominance, but now, that power was slipping away. Could he evolve? Could he lead the Empire into a new era, one that embraced change rather than resisted it? The decision weighed on him heavily, but Varen knew one thing: this was the end of the Empire's reign. Whether he would be part of the future or a relic of the past was now in his hands. With a final, heavy sigh, he gave the order. "All ships, retreat." The Imperial Wrath began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. The human fleet did not pursue. They had given Varen the chance to leave, to regroup, to learn. It was a mercy, one the Empire had not extended to others in its history. As the fleet disappeared into the vastness of space, Varen knew that everything had changed. The Empire was no longer the unquestioned power in the galaxy. The humans had shown him new path forward, but whether he could walk it, whether the Empire could walk it, remained to be seen. Ready for more? Like, subscribe, and let's keep exploring the unknown together.